So Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya are fighting at UFC 293 for the undisputed UFC middleweight championship. And crazy to think that a couple fights ago Strickland was getting knocked out cold by Alex Pereira, and here he is fighting for a title. So good for him. But I do have a problem, and here's the problem: is that nobody gives Strickland even the slightest chance. They all think that he's going to get knocked out cold in the first or the second round. He has zero chance against Adesanya because Adesanya knocked out Pereira, and they're trying to use MMA math, which clearly does not work. And you can call me crazy all you want, but honestly, I give Strickland a pretty good chance because he doesn't just run out there like Robert Whitaker did, and he's not like a 50-50 fighter where he's going to be, either he gets knocked out or he knocks someone out. He's perfectly content with point fighting and just kind of going to a decision of, kind of a sloppy decision and winning that way. So I think he has a pretty good chance. Now the odds are currently sitting at, with Adesanya, at like a minus, what is it, 440 or 450 favorite, which makes sense because he's coming off a massive victory over Pereira, and Pereira's the man to knock out Strickland last, and blah blah blah. But he was also the man to knock out Adesanya last, so you can kind of draw your cards there. But here's the thing: after that loss to Pereira, everybody expected Pereira to go get knocked out by Jared Cannonier because he's a heavy hitter too. He knocks out a lot of people. He gets a lot of people hurt. Almost everybody always gets hurt in their fights against Cannonier. And so everyone just expected another knockout loss. Two in a row for Strickland. He was going to go down the rankings, whatever. He's over. But guess what? He made it a super close fight, which he arguably should have won. I honestly just recently watched the fight, and I think that he should have won that fight. And if you look at it, if you're going to use MMA math, like all these people like to use, then Strickland and Adesanya have only lost to the same guys at this point. Adesanya has actually lost to more people then. So you can try to sit here and play your stupid MMA math games, but that stuff never really works. So I'm going to just kind of point the facts, and I'm going to, if you watch the tape, you're going to see that Strickland makes every single fight close. And the problem is Adesanya makes every single fight close too. Adesanya is only dangerous in the first two rounds. He's never knocked anybody out in the first, after the first two rounds. After one or two rounds of not getting the way he wants, he just kind of goes into his little cruise control mode where he just leg kicks and jabs a little bit and then runs away and just kind of outpoints you slowly and just waits for people to kind of go into him. His first two rounds are the dangerous rounds where he's fast. He has that, fast twitch muscle fibers or whatever, where he's quick to respond. He has that quick, like, piston of a right hand that he knocked out Pereira with. But if you're pretty content with riding out the first two rounds and then, trying to pressure him in the later three rounds, like Strickland likes to do, then you have a pretty good chance of actually beating him. Now the knockout threat is there, and it's very real for the first, two rounds, like usual, like Izzy typically has. But the problem is, Strickland isn't gonna. He's a pressure fighter, but he's not a pressure fighter in the same way that Pereira is, or that Robert Whitaker was whenever Israel Adesanya knocked him out, in their first fight. The problem with Robert Whitaker is, like, look how far he was lunging in to try to get punches off on Izzy. Even in the rematch, he was lunging in so far because he's so much smaller and he has such a big reach disadvantage that he had to do that. Pereira had a big problem in the first fight originally with pressuring him way too close to him and leaving his chin exposed. And then in the second fight, his chin was extremely exposed. He thought he was, going to get a finish right there, and ultimately paid the price for it. But the thing about Strickland is, even if he has you hurt, he doesn't leave himself super exposed for counter shots. If you watch his last fight against, Abus Magomedov, he got him hurt really bad in the second round, and he was just slowly teeing him off because he just genuinely didn't expect Abus to go down that fast and that easily. I'm guessing he was assuming that he was going to get some sort of counter shots coming at him, but they never ended up coming. So he doesn't leave himself exposed really at any point, and he actually has pretty underrated head movement. Like, watch his fights. Sometimes he does move a little bit funky and just kind of move straight back, but for the most part, it really works. I mean, Cannonier wasn't landing anything on him the whole fight, and so that's why I think he, actually won that Cannonier fight. But otherwise, I think he's actually extremely underrated. His wrestling, I'm not even going to say that his wrestling is super good and all this stuff. It's decent. The threat can be there. He could use it. Maybe if it's a very close round, he might be able to take Izzy down at the end and secure the round. But I just think that people are giving him zero chance whatsoever, and that's kind of a problem. Strickland has such a funky style that nobody believes in him. If you look at the odds for every single fight, he's either the underdog in every single fight, or it's extremely close. Like he's barely a favorite, against unranked fighters. He was barely a favorite against Abus Magomedov because everyone thought that Abus was gonna knock him out in the first round. He was a slight underdog against Jared Cannonier, which is all right. That one makes sense. He was actually the favorite to beat Pereira, which ultimately didn't work out for him because he just left his chin out there on a silver plate for Pereira to knock out. But otherwise, if you watch his other fights, like he's usually the underdog in every single fight, or if he's the favorite, he's it's a very close favorite. And then whenever he actually goes into the fight, it's pretty one-sided. Like he just beats the shit out of these guys and spars with them for the 5 rounds. Now I get it; these are unranked fighters that he's beating, or pretty low-tier fighters that are never going to be champions. But the problem is, Israel Adesanya was pretty even with Jared Cannonier. Cannonier and Adesanya were pretty look at the stats. They're basically even on all their shots. And Cannonier was able to make that into an extremely close fight. And Sean Strickland beat Cannonier. He beat Cannonier right after Cannonier just lost to Adesanya. So what does that have to say? If you're going to use MMA math, which I hate, referencing, then they should be pretty even, But people give Strickland zero chance because Pereira knocked him out. Pereira was the only man. Here's the thing about Pereira. He's going to land just like everybody else is going to land. But the thing about Pereira is he just has crazy power because look at the guy. He's massive. There was a picture of Strickland and Pereira whenever they were sparring after together. And Pereira's huge. He's a light heavyweight easily. And that's why he's able to make his light heavyweight move so easily and still look bigger than... He was literally bigger than Jan Blachowicz, who is a light heavyweight. So if that doesn't say something, I don't know what's going to say something to you. So ultimately, what do I think is going to happen? I don't want to say that Strickland can win or that he's going to win. I want to favor Israel Adesanya because it's kind of more like the logical answer to favor him, but I don't mind the chances that much of Strickland. Adesanya is extremely good. I'm not going to take away from him. He's a little bit overrated, in my opinion, but he's good. He's a champion for a reason. He makes every single fight extremely boring, so I would love for him to lose. Like when he lost to Pereira, dude, I was so freaking happy because I was like, finally a champion that's actually going to fight these guys and not run around and just leg kick at range for 5 rounds, So I think Izzy's going to win. It's probably going to be another stinker. It's going to be another Cannonier again. It's going to be another Marvin Vettori fight. It's going to be some bullshit like that again. Another Robert Whittaker 2. It's just not going to be entertaining. I think it's going to be pretty entertaining for the first 2 rounds when Izzy's actually fighting. And then he's just going to revert to his cruise control mode where he just runs away, hides around the cage, grabs onto the cage to avoid punches, and try to make himself look like he's the next anime god or whatever it is. And he's just going to win another boring decision where everyone's going to be booing him at the end. Strickland's going to be mad, calling him all sorts of names because he was running away from the whole time. And it's going to be just another Israel Adesanya title defense. And then everyone's going to call him the GOAT and all this sort of shit when he's literally not fighting these guys. He's just running away and leg kicking at range. He's literally even on strikes with all these guys. He just leg kicks him a couple of times. And that's how I think he's probably going to win. Just going to be some boring decision. But if Strickland actually, brings him into that little dirty boxing range and does his work and somehow it starts to work on Adesanya, I'm going to be the first one rooting for him, man. I'm going to be up and out of my seat. So, sadly, I don't think he beats him, but I don't mind his chances too much just because people are giving him zero chance. People think that he has no chance whatsoever. I just think that's pretty absurd. I think people need to stop underestimating him so much. Like, I get it. The Pereira fight was his biggest fight, and that's where a lot of people really saw him, for the first time. And, he fumbled the bag extremely bad, but I don't think he's actually that bad. Every other fight, he's either won or made it extremely close. I mean, the Cannonier fight, that was literally a toss-up fight. It was that close. And Cannonier was basically almost at a toss-up fight with Adesanya because Adesanya just decided to leg kick at range and run away after 2 rounds. So, sad days for all of us, but hey, the press conference is going to be great. So, there's something to look forward to.
Fuck you, MMA Vic.